Hi everyone, it's Miss Terry, and I'm here today to talk about my December picks for students in 7th and 8th grade. We'll talk about some fiction, and then we'll talk about some graphic novels, and then some nonfiction. This first one I'm going to talk about today is called Simone Breaks All the Rules. And this is a story about a girl named Simone who has very strict Haitian parents that have kind of kept her under lock and key and really under their thumb, and to keep her on the straight and narrow path that she is currently on. And she and some of her friends have decided that they're going to create a senior bucket list to kind of break out from some of these rules. Simone's main objective, of course, is to find a date to prom that is somebody other than the somewhat cute boy that her mom wishes to set her up with. So this is the story of Simone and her trying to find her own way. Mary, Will I Die is definitely in the horror genre. And this story starts out with our three main characters, Elena, Grace, Steph, and Calvin. They're 9 years old. And Elena convinces them to come into her grandmother's bedroom to look at a very ornate mirror and to play the game Bloody Mary, which means they're going to stand in front of the mirror and say Bloody Mary 13 times. And in the myth, it is said that if you might either see the face of your soulmate or you will see Bloody Mary, meaning that you will die an early death. Now it jumps forward to high school when a new girl comes to school named Mary, and the three friends end up back together as they start to share the secret that three of them saw a face of their soulmate and one of them saw Bloody Mary. This is definitely on the scary side. Dragon Ops, I pulled this one out. This one is not completely new, but I have the second one in the series that just came out. So I wanted to come back to the first one in case you missed it. And this is a story about a boy named Ian. And Ian is thrilled because he has this video game that he absolutely loves, and they've just created a fully augmented virtual reality theme park based on the video game. And he and his sister Lily and his cousin Derek have been given the opportunity to kind of be beta testers and to check it out. So when they get there, they discover that the main character Artreus, who is a dragon, is actually an artificial intelligence dragon that has become aware of itself and has trapped them inside the game and won't let them leave until the quest is over or they reach game over. This is called Dragon Ops. And then the second one that just came out is called Dragon Ops, Dragons versus Robots. Action-packed adventure. If you're a video gamer, you definitely will enjoy this. Curses is kind of a modern twist on the Beauty and the Beast story. In this case, Merit is the beast. She's right there. And she has horns, fur, and a tail. And she can only break the curse. She has to try to break the curse before she turns 18 by either finding a love match or agreeing to marry somebody that her mother has picked out for her. Well, she definitely doesn't want to do that. But luckily, she has this herb that grows in her garden that allows her to become human for small amounts of time. And she ends up using a young man named Tevin to help her start to find some matches that she can see if they are right for her. Tevin actually has been given to Merit in exchange for a crime that his mother has committed, trying to steal the herb that allows her to become human. And so Tevin is kind of there against his will, but as I'm sure you can imagine, the two of them realize that the cure for the curse might be a little bit closer to home. Amber and Clay, while it is very thick, is written in verse. So a lot of it is written in verse. So it's a nice quick read at parts. But this is a story about Hermes, the Greek god, and his idea that every person was once two people stuck together. And so then you will hear the story of Amber and Clay, which is not their names in the stories, but one is of Amber and one is of Clay, and their lives that are entwined through either fate or circumstances, and you can determine if Hermes is correct. Lucky Girl tells the story of Fortuna Jane Bellywether. She actually prefers to just go by Jane, who is really having a good day. She's just discovered that the lottery ticket that she purchased is a winner of $58 million. The big problem though is she's not 18, so she can't claim it, at least not yet. And she's struggling to figure out how she's going to get her winnings. Her mom is still grieving over the loss of her husband, and she hasn't been making the best money decisions, so she's really worried about telling her mom about it. Her best friend is determined to be a news reporter, so he's trying to hunt down the winner of the ticket so that he can break the story. And then she has her ex-boyfriend, or kind of on again, off again boyfriend, Holden, who is convinced he's a financial genius, also in the mix. So if you like the idea of winning the lottery and maybe having to keep it secret for a while, Lucky Girl is a good story for you. Where It All Lands is a good story of what if. And this is a story about a girl named Stevie who has just moved to yet another new town with her father, who is a coach for the NFL. And she's kind of sick and tired of moving all the time. She's really into music, and she's hoping to nail a band audition so that she can get into a good college. And there she meets best friends Shane and Drew, who both think they've fallen in love with Stevie at first sight. And they decide to let fate determine who is going to get to ask her out, and they flip a coin. So the story is told from multiple points of view, as both Drew and Shane tell the story of what might have happened if they were the one to have won the coin toss. So that's called Where It All Lands. Sing Me Forgotten is a gender-swapped twist of the Phantom of the Opera tale, and it's told in a really fantastical world where Isda, she is what is known as a gravure, and she has very dangerous magic. She is able to manipulate the memories of people while they are singing. When singing is occurring. Normally graveyards are killed at birth, but the owner of an opera house, his name is Cyril, rescued Isda when she was drowning as a baby, and is using her to influence the audience members at his opera house, because while the singers are singing, Isda is able to go into their memories and make them feel like, oh, this was the best music ever. So it's really helping the opera house get a lot of money. But she's also very interested in music and is a composer of her own right. And she ends up meeting a young man named Emmerich, who he's not trained enough to actually sing at the opera house, but he has a beautiful voice. And he is actually a fendor who is able to siphon the memories off of people. And then they are sold to the rich as a way to help them reclaim their own memories. So Isda agrees to help train him in the music in the hopes that they can both get the freedom they desire. So it's called Sing Me Forgotten. A very complex fantasy world. This next one is a part of the Twisted Tales series from Disney. It's called Go the Distance, and this talks about what happens after Hercules solves his quest and becomes a god and immortal. And Zeus has decided that Meg, his love, is not able to live with Hercules with the gods because she is not immortal, but he does have a solution for it. All that Meg has to do, I'm afraid, is to get her ex's current wife out from the underworld. And so now you have to see if Meg has it in her to reach immortal status. So that's called Go the Distance. And then the last fiction one I'm going to talk about today is called 10,000 Tries. And this is about a boy named Golden Maroney, whose life is a little bit falling apart. His dad has just been diagnosed with ALS, which is a very debilitating disease that eventually leads to death. His very best friend is moving away, and he's just really frustrated with how little control he has over his world. Well, he really wants to be a famous soccer player. And he is convinced that if he does 10,000 hours of practice in soccer, he will become a master. And so he's going to set out and do that and keep his dad from getting sick and hopefully keep his friend from moving away. So it's called 10,000 Tries. All right, let's look at some graphic novels. The first is a two-part series. The first one is called A Family Secret, and then the second one is called The Search. So The Search picks up where The Family Secret lets off. And this is in cooperation with the Anne Frank House and the Resistance Museum of Friesland. And this is a story about a young boy named Jerome who ends up helping his grandmother clean out her attic when he discovers a scrapbook that tells about the life of his grandmother Helena in World War II in Amsterdam. In Germany occupied Amsterdam, and what it was like living there with the Germans, as well as the loss of her Jewish friend Esther during the war. And then it also reveals a secret that is important for the next book, The Search. So this is historical fiction, as well as kind of a modern day looking back on history. Whistle is a part of the DC comic universe. This is about a girl named Willow. She's a strong activist for going up against those who are not helping out her rundown town of Gotham City. She also works at an animal shelter at night where this Great Dane named Leibowitz follows her around constantly. Unfortunately, her mom is very sick. They don't have any health insurance and things are getting up really tight. Well, she ends up meeting up with Enigma, who is a very wealthy socialite in Gotham City, and Enigma allows Willow to come and work for them as kind of like a party host. So she's kind of getting swept up into this very rich world, but that unfortunately draws the attention of Killer Croc, who is a villain in Gotham. And after this, she discovers that she has some new abilities that she did not have before. The Dire Days of Willow Weep Manor is a story about a girl named Hale who's really kind of in love with gothic romance novels, and one day she sees a young man fall into the river and she decides she's going to jump in and save him and maybe find the love of her life. However, when she drags him out of the water, she finds them in a place called Willow Weep that's not exactly where she was before, and she discovers that Willow Weep is actually a pocket universe that keeps the rest of the world protected, and its defenses are starting to weaken, and she needs to find out if she has the strength inside of her to become the heroine she's always wished she could be. Friends Forever by Shannon Hale is a story of Shannon when she was in middle school in 8th grade, and she thinks that she has found the key to eternal happiness. All she needs to do is be beautiful, famous, successful, and a good person. Sounds pretty easy, right? Well, Shannon has a really hard time doing that, and she's constantly making mistakes, and she's going to have to figure out if she's ever going to be able to be just happy with who she is rather than trying to be someone she isn't. If you like books like Rules or Ghosts, you definitely would enjoy Friends Forever. This next one is a graphic novel version of a book called A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, and this is a story about a young boy whose brother Sean is shot in a random act of violence, and what happens is he decides to follow the rules of his neighborhood, and the rules are: 1, don't cry ever; 2, don't snitch, don't ever tell the cops what has happened; and 3, if somebody you love dies by a gunshot wound, you need to take revenge no matter what. So the story is told as he is going down 7 flights in an elevator with a gun in his pocket, determined to take revenge for his brother's death, for the person who shot him. And as he's going down, every time he gets to a different floor, a new person comes on and is a part of his life and is trying to tell him why following these rules is not going to help anything. The Spill Zone by Scott Westerfeld is a story about a young girl named Addie whose hometown of Poughkeepsie, New York, had something horrific happen to it 3 years ago, and it's now become this like wasteland. It's called the Spill Zone, where absolute horrors live and roam, and it's kind of been quarantined from the rest of the world, and you're not supposed to go in there, especially after dark. You're definitely not supposed to take photos. Well, Addie is a young budding photographer, and she really wants to capture some of the creatures that live there, and this is the story of her going into the Spill Zone to see what she can find. This is a little bit on the scary side. Bad Island is the story of a boy named Reese who kind of gets roped into going on a family boating trip when their boat gets shipwrecked on an island, and they're having a hard time figuring out how they're going to survive this island, especially when they discover that it might actually be alive. You can kind of see the island looks a little spooky. And then the last graphic novel I'm going to talk about today, this one is called Anonymous Noise. It is written in the manga style of Japanese comics, and it's about a girl named Nino who is a musician, and she suffered her first really great heartbreak when her best friend Momo moves away. She does end up meeting a music composer named Yuzu, and they hit it off. Unfortunately, Yuzu also goes away, and Nino is just trying to find her place in her music, and hopefully will eventually meet up with Momo and Yuzu again. So that's called Anonymous Noise. All right, let's look at some nonfiction. This first one is called Something Rotten, a fresh look at roadkill. So I don't know, this time of year, we certainly do see a lot of animals dead on the side of the road. And this kind of looks at the science of where do those animals come from? Why do certain spots seem to have a lot of dead animals? And what can scientists learn about the animals on the side of the road? Including even some information about eating roadkill. This next one is called Warrior Dog, and this is a story about Will Chesney, who was a Navy SEAL, and he ended up getting paired with a dog named Cairo, and they trained together. So this book talks about their training and their commitment to each other, how many times Cairo had saved his life, and they were actually a part of Operation Neptune Spear, which took place in Palestine and was responsible for taking down Osama bin Laden. Bridge to the Wild is a really fun look at what the inside life of a zoo is like. And this one in particular is the Atlanta Zoo, and you'll get to meet a lot of the animals that live there, as well as the veterinarians who take care of them. So if you've always kind of wondered what happens behind the scenes at a zoo, this is a good choice for you. Ski Soldier is a story of World War II, but it's really more about, it's also written in verse, it's really more about Pete Siebert, who was, he ended up enlisting when he was 18 years old and became a ski soldier. So he and his company was called the 10th Mountain, and they were responsible for patrolling the mountains of Italy in World War II, looking for the enemy. It was actually a very scarring experience for him. He came back injured, wasn't sure he was ever going to ski again, but then he and some of his fellow soldiers were able to get back out on the slopes and actually founded a very famous ski resort in Vail, Colorado. It's called Ski Soldier. Couple things to do. This one is mind-blowing module origami. If you like the art of paper folding and you're interested in learning how to create these amazing structures, this will give you step-by-step instructions on how to do it. This is definitely not, if you've never done origami before, I wouldn't jump right into this one, but if you do enjoy it and you're looking for more difficult projects, this is a good choice for you. This next one is called It's a Numbers Game, Basketball, and this looks at everything basketball in regards to numbers. So a lot of stats are in here. Like here's famous uniform numbers. It also looks at things like dribbling and all the numbers involved in dribbling. A lot of interesting trivia and facts. If you are a basketball fan, you would enjoy paging through this one. Astrology is a book that talks about the 12 zodiac symbols and what they could mean for your life, why people enjoy astrology, what are some of the jobs involved in doing astrology, and what you might be able to learn based on the month that the time of year you were born. Witches is the absolutely true tale of disaster in Salem, Massachusetts. So this talks all about the Salem witch trials. It's in a nice quick read format, but it talks about the girls that first came down with the mysterious illness that was making them twitchy, and all the accusations and all the false accusations and the trials that went on, and what it might have meant to be a witch at that time. Can I See Your ID are true stories of false identities, and this talks about people who pretend to be other people, including a high school dropout who ends up pretending to be a Navy surgeon, a poor English woman who convinces the people around her that she's actually a kidnapped Asian princess, and then a Jewish teen who actually hid during World War II and kept safe from the Nazis by joining the Hitler Youth. And then the last nonfiction today is called The Wide World of Coding, and it looks at the people and careers behind the programs that you know and love. If you're interested in computer programming, if you think you might want to be a video gamer or make your own video games, or you want to find some kind of career that has to do with coding, this is a good choice for you. Enjoy.